Hi, Hannah.
Hey, all right.
Hi, thanks for joining. I'm just going to get your presentation up. Do you need any of the Calabao team here for the first part?
Oh no, I think I'm okay. Yeah.
Brilliant. I'll just get your presentation up then.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself, so just tell. Okay.
Awesome. So basically, I've been asked. My name's Hannah, and I'm from Loaves, which I opened during the first lockdown. The Chocolate Academy has actually asked me to have a little chat with you guys today about the process of opening a new business. So I was previously in London for about 8 years. I'll talk to you a little bit about that first. So just before the first lockdown, I was in London working in different restaurants and hotels for about 8 years. And then obviously coronavirus hit. I moved back to Bristol, which is my hometown, which was supposed to be temporary. But out of pure boredom, I just started baking from my house every single day. It got to the point then where I had so many baked things that I had no one to give them to, and no one to do. My dad was getting pretty sick of all of the sweet treats, believe it or not. So I decided to start posting it on social media, mainly on Facebook. So there's a lot of community Facebook groups in my local area. And I started posting up like weekly changing menus, just a few little bits. Mainly like breads and a couple of sweet treats every week, and it kind of skyrocketed pretty fast to go to sort of, I think it was within 3 weeks we had 150 return customers, which was much larger than I anticipated it to be when we were starting it. And it happened very quick. So I very quickly started looking for a commercial kitchen space, because at that point, it was when I realized that I really wanted to pursue this as a sort of business model, where initially it was just kind of a little bit of fun and just take up kind of boredom. So I started looking for a commercial kitchen space, and I actually came across my old bakery that I used to go to after school, for like, donuts and stuff like that, treats like that. And it was completely empty. It was in a real state when we found it. So we took on, myself, my dad and my brother took on the massive task of renovating it, which took us about 4 months, which I'll show you on the slides a bit later, sort of the scope of how big that was. So it took us about 4 months to renovate, and now we've been open as a shop for about 9 months, I think it is, give or take. It was a very gradual opening, but I just kind of wanted to have a chat with you guys about the kind of pitfalls that I forgot about, and the things that kind of caught me up while starting up a business, and kind of how difficult but how easy it is all at the same time. But it's obviously very important to think about everything rather than just the fun stuff, unfortunately. So I'll just show you the next slide, which is basically when we started, we were doing deliveries, and on the left-hand side, you can see that's when we kind of started. We're just doing like little bits to houses locally. And to the right slide now, the capacity of bread that we've just started doing for wholesale has massively increased, to the point where we need to sort of get a van, like get a driver, stuff like this. And that's the scope between sort of maximum of a year ago to now. So a few things that I definitely forgot about when I was starting this up was, especially from home, I didn't think about the things like you have to register for a health and safety license with the people, the council. So you basically, it's really simple to do. It's just one of those things that you kind of forget about if you're starting off very, very small scale. It's not necessarily something you'd think about initially, but it's very important you do it, because I think it's actually against the law to not register yourself online for that. So you literally just go onto the website, register your business, and then they take it from there. Really, they'll contact you and then come out, just have a little spot check of where you're working and stuff like that. And you'll then get a food health and safety hygiene rating, which is from 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And that's the same thing for if you're opening a premises as well. You still need to do that. They do take a very long time to get around to it. I don't know whether that's more so now because of COVID or if it is always been like that, but it's definitely taking them. They still haven't actually checked us since we've moved into the premises, which is crazy. But we're all registered, so we're just waiting for a spot check, which is completely random. Other things that I kind of thought about were when I took on the space, there was a lot of work, and you can decide to take someone on that's already sort of got what you need. So you can take on like a kitchen space that's already equipped and all that kind of stuff. I decided not to, right or wrongly so. And I definitely didn't anticipate the amount of work that was going to go into it. So if we just go to the next slide here, you can see when we kind of first took over, it was super run down. This is the shop front. It did actually have some previous graphics and stuff on it from the previous shop, but this is when we took them down and we found this was what was there. And then if you go to the next slide, this was what we were given essentially. And initially I was like, okay, this is great. We just have to, paint the walls, do some new flooring, new ceiling, and it'll be fine. And then you kind of start digging and you find little bits that you just have no idea about. First example, all this ceiling that you can see here was suspended and pretty grim, but it was full of rats, so it's all insulation. And me and my brother, we started tearing the ceiling down, and stuff just kept falling down. It was crazy. So we then had to get pest control in. We had to stop all work for a little while, get them to kind of evacuate the area of pests and stuff like that, put down all the bits, block off any holes that had been coming from outside the building, which was mad. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see we then started tearing the floors up, sort of plastering the walls, stuff like that. And then the next slide again, if we just slowly go through these next ones, it's all pretty much just the works. And it was just a really, really long process of finding little bits that still need to be done. And then this is kind of where we got to. So we actually got held up a massive amount because we hadn't even thought about what sort of power we would need, which is massive, I think, if you were taking on a premises. We had a massive issue when we were looking at ovens. So what I didn't have any knowledge of whatsoever was the power supply is either single phase, which is like a home power source, and the power source that you need for most commercial ovens, especially deck ovens, which is what I was using in the bakery, needed to be 3-phase, which is like a much higher voltage. So we then had to speak with Western Power to get them to try and get us a quote so that we could dig through. So it's quite a big process, which I didn't understand at all. I'm not techie. I'm not, I'm not very good with regards to anything practical apart from cooking. And they actually had to dig a trench all through the street that we were on, this little high street. I think I've lost you here. Did I lose you there?
No, you're still here.
Okay, good. I don't know why my screen went blank then. So yeah, we had to dig a trench all through the high street and get permission from each person that the shops fell on that we had to go in front of, because obviously their businesses were affected by it. And it took about 3 months, I think, for them from the start of them asking to them actually fitting it, because there's a lot of people that have to go through it and kind of talk about what needs to be done. I think that there was a gas line going straight to an airport as well, going through, which they had to get permission to go over. So it's just little things like that you don't really anticipate being an issue. And And also, I was very fortunate that my family, my brother and my dad, were very handy with regards to the works. So all of the countering that you can see on this slide here, they built all that from scratch. I tried to help, and then most of it I just I did it, and then they had to fix it for me, which was I'm sure that they just hate the bakery altogether now. I just never want to go there ever again. But yeah, you just obviously vouch into that I was very fortunate to have them to help. You have to think about sort of the cost of how much something like that would cost for like a team of people to do for you if you didn't have people that could help you out like that, because I'm very grateful that they were able to, because I know it would have been a lot more expensive if they couldn't have.
It's a lot of unexpected costs, isn't it? And just because I mean the transformation between your store as it was and now is just incredible. You wouldn't know they were the same place, but you can really hear from your story how much frustration there was in that, because you're getting delayed all the time by things you couldn't see at face value.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have, when we started out, we had like an initial budget plan, and there are all these things that you have to like tick off that we were like, okay, that amount is for this amount is for that, but all the little hiccups and the niggles that then end up costing you more money, you just don't take into account. So you obviously have to almost over budget, I suppose. And if you're, for whatever, like, it depends on where your budget is coming from as well. You have to factor in the time scale of the budget that you're going to pay back. So if you take out, for example, like a business loan or a government grant scheme or something like this that needs to be repaid, setting out a time plan in which you need to repay that, you need to just take into account that you're going to have all these little hiccups down the road that are going to push it further along. When we first took on the shop, we genuinely believed that we'd been open in a month. I mean, it was the height of lockdown. We were doing nothing else, so the three of us kind of said, look, we'll just go. We'll go there every day. We'll absolutely smash it. But we didn't factor into account that it was the other people that needed to sign things off that would be holding us up, which was massive for us. I also had no idea about anything to do with taxes and accounting and bookkeeping and all this stuff, which I really quickly had to learn about, which was quite...
It's crazy, isn't it, how many hats you end up wearing as a small business owner, you're your own accountant when you've never had any experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really, really very lucky that my dad has been running a business since he was super young. Pretty much a similar age to when I started, and he had to do the same thing and learn everything kind of slowly as he went along. So it was great to like have him on 24-hour speed dial to ask anything I needed to ask. But obviously those are little things that you need to take into account as well, with regards to even just down to the VAT. So I had no idea what the scope was with regards to paying VAT on certain items, which is very complicated for food. And I thought it was just like a black and white thing. I've always like gone to like wholesale stores and stuff like that, and you see like, the standard price and then plus VAT and stuff like that. But with food, it seems to be much more complicated with regards to if items are hot or cold, they're VATed different, like everything's taxed differently with regards to that. So it's really tricky trying to navigate those side of things.
Yeah, especially, I mean, this might not apply to you so much at the minute, but especially with Brexit coming in, there's different tax codes for every ingredient just because it's slightly different to its, similar counterpart, which is really tricky to understand if you're coming into it fresh, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that goes back to what your budget is as well, because when I was when we first started, I just seen someone's comment saying that stands for very awkward tax. Completely accurate. I didn't want to kind of pay people to do things that I could do myself, even though, I mean, when I first started, I was starting at 5 a.m. most days, finishing gone midnight, 1 a.m. And that would be like 6 days a week, which is insane. Don't put yourself through it if you don't have to. But it's all a matter of what you can save money on with regards to, I wanted to really try and understand the money side of things with regards to the bookkeeping, because I think it made me more aware of like my ingredient prices and all that kind of stuff and what goes into it, and also what I needed to get back from it. Now that I kind of understand that a little bit more, not completely, I've decided to actually get someone to do my bookkeeping for me. And that's mainly.
Okay, so you think, you know, as the process has gone on, you've kind of decided to value more paying someone for their skill rather than taking it all on yourself.
Yeah, so someone said to me, I can't actually remember who it was, but someone said to me that you need to realize how valuable your own time is sometimes, and time is money in every sense, but sometimes letting go of that weight just gives you a bit of extra time to think about the things that you can't get someone else to do yourself. And them doing that for me at this point, now that I kind of understand it and can be like sort of cross the dots and T's and look at things better, gives me a chance to, if I did get, for example, a tax investigation or anything like that, I can kind of send them to my accountant and just be like, that's going to be dealt with, rather than if for whatever reason the health inspector turned up one day and so did the tax man. You don't have.
Yeah, you'd be really stuck then, wouldn't it? If you were doing everything, you'd have a queue out the door.
Yeah, and it's also like, it's a very small team that we have working. So it's myself. I have a night cleaner, which has been a massive help. We didn't have that at the start. It was very much just everyone does everything, and we just get it done. We've decided to take on a night cleaner because it saves like 2 hours of our time every day. And then there's two others within the shop that work with me full time. But you can multitask so much to an extent. Like, you have to be with the customers, talking with the customers all the time, and you also need to be focusing on the oven that's got 30 loaves of bread in.
I think that's such a valuable lesson. You know, so many of our student members, their goal is to start their own business, and I think that's that piece of learning there, that, you know, actually your skill is baking. So if you spend 2 hours cleaning, you're paying your hourly rate as a skilled baker, but you're not getting any of that, you're not making that worthwhile. So, I like what you're saying, is that to an extent you need to know the ins and outs, but after that you really can't be spending all your time on it. It's really useful information.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're starting out, if you have a budget, you can only kind of afford to pay people to do so much. So I very much had the headset for the first at least 6 months to do as much as I could until I couldn't. And I really did push myself to a limit with regards to like the hours that I was working and stuff like that. A lot of my family members kind of kept saying to me, you need to kind of hand some of this off to someone else. But I think if you're not prepared to push yourself to the limits, then, perhaps give it a little bit more time. And I say that with the best intentions of, you really need to be 100% into what you're doing if you're starting a business, because it does consume a massive amount of your life, but it is also about finding balance.
Definitely, that is such useful information for our our student members. I wanted to run through some of the questions we'd had, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So Corey asked, how many months did the process take, start to finish, from getting your shop keys, I guess, to opening properly?
Yeah, so I think we opened September, at the end of September. I believe we got the keys April, May, June, July, August. Yeah, it must have been the end of April / early May.
So that still is quite a fast turnaround. Although you were ambitious to say, right, we're going to do it in a month, I would say that's still a really quick turnaround. Well done.
Yeah.
And then I think, so Sarah also said, what is the most important piece of advice you would give to someone who's thinking of starting up their own business?
I think the most important piece of advice I could give to you is be very patient with yourself more than you are with other people, because I'm very often very hard on myself to the point of I didn't kind of take a step back for a really long time and look at what I'd achieved with regards to the business. And it's only maybe in the past like month or so that I've actually realized how much we've done in such a small scale of time. So yeah, just like be as easy on yourself as you possibly can be, because it's not easy.
That is good advice. It's really not easy. I think imposter syndrome plays a massive part in a lot of young people's careers these days. But actually, you take a step back sometimes and realize, I just did something great and I'm going to take the day off to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Paul asked you, was it really difficult to get financing for this?
Personally, no. I had a couple of different avenues that I was looking into, and I actually managed to get a very close family company of mine to put in a massive amount of funding in the form of a loan, which, I mean, the interest was very, very good, like the rate sort of thing. It can be very difficult, but that all depends on if you've got, you know, a good business plan set out. And stuff like that. They take everything into account with regards to your attitude, how much you really thought about the long term, like what you want to be.
So it's worth kind of getting your eggs in a row before you're getting your ducks in a row, eggs in one basket, ducks in a row, getting your ducks in a row before you go to any financial establishment.
Absolutely. And I think a massive thing that a lot of people asked me about was average spends. And how many of them that you were forecasting. So I think spreadsheets are a massive thing.
Well, we do quite a lot of those at uni.
Yeah.
So we're pretty well set up.
It's really difficult. I think, you know, you need to, it sounds terrible to say it, but you need to try and almost blag your way into getting what you want until you have gotten somewhere with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I'm a big believer in fake it till you make it.
Absolutely.
I really think as a young person, that's the only way you get anywhere is fake it till you make it. We've got two final questions, and then I'm going to ask you the all-important question. So Dawn asked you, what is your bestseller loaf?
Sourdough. From day one, actually, it's just been consistently a great seller. It's a very health conscious thing now, I think.
Yeah, and Neil asks, are you a member of the CBA? That's the Craft Bakers Association.
I'm not.
Okay, so go and look at the CBA website. It's well worth joining. If you're a small baker, you get loads of great resources from them and help with any situation that comes up. They're a brilliant association. Awesome, and they partner really closely with us. They are giving us a grant, which is going to enable us to give our student members compensation if they ever want to do any unpaid work experience or, you know, travel expenses for things like that. My question, bakery fail. We all fail. What's your biggest bakery fail?
Well, I heard you ask this, the previous speaker, and I've been racking my brains because I make so many mistakes that trying to pinpoint one is really difficult. But I think probably my most frustrating fail was forgetting to put, and this wasn't at the bakery, this was in a job beforehand, so it was probably even worse, like the feeling was even worse. I forgot to put salt in a massive batch of sourdough.
Yeah, been there, done that.
I couldn't understand why it was growing so rapidly.
You're thinking, wow, this is really proving well, you know, everything's coming up nicely, the stars have aligned, and then you know.
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, that's the first thing that sprung to mind when you asked it previously.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, we all fail. Everyone's rubbish. I do it all the time, you know, and it's worth talking about, isn't it? But no, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. I know that our student members are going to be really inspired by this, because a lot of them want to open their own businesses. So go and follow Hannah on Lockdown Loaves on Instagram, and keep up with her journey, because you know, the shop looks incredible, and I'm sure you're going to go on to do amazing things with it in the future. So yeah, really well done, and thank you so much.
No worries, thank you.
Brilliant. I'll just drop you off the stream. Okay, great. So now we're going to have our presentation from Calabar. So I'm just going to share the logos while I get that together.